Good evening. I would like to call to order the March 27th meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. We are starting off with some new business, a request for determination of applicability. Suryatech EV Power LLC is here for a project on 1460 Middlesex Street. A request for determination of applicability has been filed by Suryatech seeking to install an EV charging station at 1460 Middlesex. The proposed work is within the 100-year FEMA floodplain, and this is the I forget what brand gas station.
I think it's a mobile.
Mobile station?
I think it's a mobile.
If you would, start by introducing yourself and your address, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mayur Kamlakar. I'm founder and CEO of Suryatech EV Power, and I'm located at 48 Riley Road. We are doing a solar-powered EV charging station at 1460 Middlesex Street. It's a mobile gas station.
Can you tell us a little bit about the the device itself?
Yeah.
I was curious about a solar-powered charging station. It is still connected to the grid, right?
Yeah. So we have got approval from National Grid. We are one of their approved vendors to do the business in the state of Massachusetts and upstate New York. The charging station which we are using is level 2, which is already on their approved vendors list. We have already applied and have been qualified to receive the rebate for the EV charging device itself. What we are trying to do is we are having a solar canopy which is connected to the grid, which is fueling back the solar power into the grid, which will net meter to the gas station power, and the EV charger is just taking the power from the grid. So it will be first of its kind solar powered EV charging station. But you are right, it is connected to the grid.
And it appears that you intend on elevating this station up out of the flood zone by building up piers that will take it up to required elevation?
Yeah. So we have engaged a structural engineering firm, and we have also engaged electrical engineering firm to do both the electrical and structural drawings. For the structural canopy, we have maintained like 2 feet over the grade height to meet all the Massachusetts state requirement for flood zone. We have also got the stamped approval, permits from the electrical engineers. And for the EV charging itself, I have the drawing of what we will be doing is we will be installing it over a plate which basically meets the criteria for the state for floods, 100-year flood zone area. So both the solar canopy and the EV charger, everything will be basically raised above certain grade limit to meet the requirements for the state. And we have got the approved drawings from the licensed PE engineer.
So you said it's about 2 feet from the existing grade up to the flood zone line?
2 feet for the canopy, that is the structural requirement. For the EV charger itself, we are having it on the curb, so it is not on the ground. So it's already on the curb. But we will still be using a steel structure or a concrete structure to meet the requirements to avoid the flood.
How far up your charging station would the water have to go before it's compromised?
So basically, this is it is a 2.5 inch. So the plate, the EV charger already comes with that height, and on top of that, we are putting like a concrete pad under it, which is I believe 1 feet for the EV charger. That was the requirement from the state of Massachusetts, and that's what our structural engineer has advised us to do.
I don't know if that answered my question. How far? No matter the elevation of that thing compared to the flood zone, how far up that device would the water have to go before it's hitting critical electronics? Just out of curiosity.
Okay, just for your curiosity, all the electrical components are on the top side. So this is just like a plastic thing. There is nothing on the base side. And also what we have done is we have run like a 100-year flood plan zone, 100-year flood zone like analysis, and we have found that so this is at 5.5 feet on the height for the electrical components. So nothing basically should happen to this. Also, this has been insulated well. So even if it snows or there is highest kind of snow, these have been tested and approved by National Grid.
The whole device is 5.5 feet high?
No, the electrical components in that is at 5.5 feet. which is over here.
So it's up, okay.
This high?
Yeah, so this is like this.
You take those plugs out of head height?
Yeah, it's over here, like this height.
Yeah, okay.
But the overall EV charging device is 5.75 feet height.
Okay.
That has meant to, it is designed in a way so that even a handicapped person can have access to it.
That makes more sense. I understand now.
Yeah.
So we've been pretty strict on this board about pylons supporting a structure, adding to the flood zone without providing compensation. I think the question for this is, how do we feel as a board about that issue? And what are your thoughts? You got anything else about this device that you'd like to tell us?
I mean, it's an approved EV charging device by National Grid, and it has been installed like almost in all the states in the US. We are also basically following all the criteria, like FEMA flood zone requirements from the structural standpoint, also from the electrical standpoint for the EV charging installation. And the mobile gas station is really interested in doing this project. Also, National Grid is giving us the rebate to do this project. And I think it will be first of its kind project in the city of Lowell. So I would really appreciate if there is a positive response.
Any comments from the board?
How far down for the canopy is the pylon that's holding it up going to go?
It's
Like
going
into
to
the
go-
ground? Is it
yeah.
going into the ground at all?
It is going 3.5 feet underground and 2 feet over the ground.
Okay.
So the structural engineer recommended us that, so we are following that. So it's pretty solid, sir.
Is there one or two pylons? Just one?
Two.
Two on both sides? Okay, like canopy. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's like this. It's not going to be so big,
Okay.
but it's 12 panels on top, 6.6 kilowatt solar power, which will be generated during the day and will be fed back into the grid.
Just to be clear, we are talking about really two separate things here.
Yeah.
There's a charging station, and then there's a solar rack. Why did they have to be in the same place?
Because the gas station owner wanted it over there as a shade when the car is charging. And we wanted to have it away from the gas station itself to meet the fire code requirements. So there was no other place over there. So we had to have it like 25 feet away from the gas station itself.
Yeah.
So those were the spots.
Anybody else?
How many units are going up again?
Sorry?
How many chargers are going up? How many-
Oh, just two of these, sir. And each one is 9.9 kilowatts. That's it.
So it's two platforms or just one platform all the way across? Base.
Two platforms, two separate platforms, each for each of the chargers, and each charger has 2 ports. So it will charge 2 cars at the same time. 2 charging stations will charge 4 cars at the same time.
And the canopy itself, is that, how wide is the canopy?
How wide?
Canopy, yeah, over the panels.
It is around like 20 feet wide.
And
Yeah.
what's that being braced by? Is that being underneath? What's it being braced by?
Concrete?
Concrete also?
Yeah,
So that'll be an additional concrete. And
Yeah.
that concrete's also being pillared.
correct. So we are putting 3.5 feet inside the ground and 2 feet over the ground for the canopy. So, yeah. So we are making sure we are following, like, we are trying to have it like more robust kind of a thing to meet all the requirements.
Any other thoughts?
Just usually when you have pylons like this, and I think Commissioner Butenhuis said this as well. We usually look for compensation, which I don't think we've thought about that here at all. And so that you said they're 3.5 feet in the ground, so it's a 5 foot
Yeah, it's overall 5 feet.
total 5 feet basically, or almost 6 feet.
All that matters is what's above the surface.
What's above the surface? So it's 2 feet above.
2 feet
2 feet over the grade.
times 2.
Times 2, yeah, with both.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, are you familiar with this term of compensation? Flood zone storage compensation?
No, sir.
So typically, when there's addition to, construction added volumetric additions to the flood zone, that's a loss of flood zone storage, right?
Okay.
You would have to compensate for that storage somewhere else on site at that same elevation.
Okay.
So, you know, two cylinders, 1 foot tall at this elevation and 2 at this elevation, right? Because there's 2 feet. We look for it in each 1 foot section. So you would do that by creating or removing earth from somewhere else on the site in
Okay.
that same elevation.
Okay.
Knowing that these are for a structure, for me,
2 structures.
yeah, for structures,
Yeah.
instead of being for the charging station, historically, this board has not permitted additions to the flood zone without compensation for structure, right? Because we are often talking about housing.
Okay.
I'm a little bit undecided with it being a solar panel and it being so little, but I want to make sure to not set a precedent that we are talking about allowing compensation or allowing construction of a structure without compensation.
Okay. We
So
can.
I would love for you to start to look around the site and see if there's anywhere at the same elevation as this addition that you're proposing to put that could be removed from the area. I think that if you can find that, this is easy.
Okay.
If you can't, we have to decide whether or not we allow it being a solar panel.
Okay.
So if I could request that you,
Well, I think to be consistent with other projects that we've looked at, we do need to ask for, I think, some more detailed information showing grades, where the flood line is, elevations, and those sorts of things to help us understand the impact of what this is. Because that's what we've asked other people to do.
I agree.
Who've come before for similar things, so to be consistent, I would ask for that. Secondly, amongst us on the commission, I'm beginning to question this approach of, and what we've done in the past with these sorts of pylons or sonotube constructions in the floodplain. When you read the letter of the law, it does give basically a commission like us some discretion in deciding these things. And so the fact that the law doesn't say that you absolutely have to provide compensation. There is discretion left to it's called the issuing authority in the law, or the local commission. And so one of the other reason why I sort of begin to question this approach is I work in Newburyport, and that whole area, the road going to Plum Island, and most of Plum Island is definitively in a flood area. All the houses are on stilts. All the houses are on sonotubes. And somehow those get built and must be complying with the law somehow, because those are definitely in areas that flood very regularly. And so that's why I'm just sort of questioning our past approach on this. And I guess what I'm looking for is some guidance from somebody, and I don't know who that is.
well, so
Whether it's Mass DEP or, I don't know, on these, and this is sort of going beyond your specific project. This is more of a question for the commission on these sorts of things. Because as I've started reading the actual text of the law in a little bit more detail, I'm beginning to wonder if there is a little bit more leeway that we have as a commission in reviewing these things, especially when this is Middlesex Street. I mean, you look at everything that's along there, and
Yeah, it's all
we're looking at
impervious
basically
pavement, too.
4 sonotubes that are going in.
Sure.
So I think it's in an effort to be somewhat practical and reasonable in this, and obviously complying with the law, and being respectful of the environmental concerns and the resource. I just would like to kind of discuss our approach a little bit. But still, I think you, for your specific project, need to provide us the sort of information that we typically get for proposed projects in a flood area like this, we definitely need more grading information.
Okay.
So we can understand the impact of what this is going to be, so we can better evaluate it.
Can that compensation be on the curb itself?
Yeah, any removal from that existing grade, as long as it's within the same foot, right? So you're adding your foot up here, you need to you need to subtract a foot up here somewhere else on the site,
Okay.
which may or may not be possible. And it's something that we can talk about, but we need to see whether or not, how feasible it is first,
Okay.
right? So to respond to your original comment about the process, right? There's been this recent appeal to DEP about a similar project.
Right.
And I look forward to hearing their feedback about what our approach is.
No, I
There's
agree.
one of us online.
And that's what kind of,
Yeah.
after
where is-
reviewing that and then starting to look at this project a little bit.
Sure.
I sort of started wondering about this particular kind of situation in a little bit more detail and
Yeah.
trying to understand what our approach should be on these sorts of projects, especially in places where in locations where we have seen where it's not possible to provide compensatory storage.
Sure.
Because then that effectively means that that is not a buildable piece of property. And I think there are issues with that also with state law.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well,
that kind of, what I'm talking about kind of goes beyond you a little bit.
Yeah, this is a much broader conversation of something that we've been kind of going back and forth, and you're caught in the middle of it, and I apologize for that.
Yeah,
But,
no problem. I mean, there is a gas station. So I was
Sure.
like, man, why is there a gas station and we have issues with the floodplain? But then I talked to the owner and he said the permits were approved like way long time ago.
before Concom.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, and so we have taken the stance that we have because we know the floods aren't getting any better. You know, they're getting worse. The predictions are that we're going to see more rain here,
Yeah.
and it's not going to, you know, the flood zone level isn't going to go down. It's going to go up. So we're just trying to be careful.
Okay.
We have historically had many areas of the city that flood considerably.
So from the engineering standpoint, everything has been taken care of. I will go and take a look for the compensation part.
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit additional spot grade survey.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be too specific. We're looking for high points and low points.
Okay.
You know.
Okay,
And
Brad?
go ahead, Louisa. What's going on?
Well, I'd like to say that I thought you should bring up the points that Steve just brought up about the plans not really giving us the information that we need for our department. And that was to know what the existing floodplain elevation is. I didn't find that anywhere on the plan. And then the calculation, and Steve has already said this, but I want to repeat it in case the engineer is not familiar with the type of charts that we ask for, to have a volume of what's going into that floodplain area foot by foot, so we can calculate what that is, or know what that is. And I also think that in a case like this, perhaps, discretion is something that should be taken into account. Just driving around, I don't have an electric vehicle, but just driving around Lowell, I don't see a lot of public charging stations. I do see them in other towns. So I would think that this is something that the public is in need of, which would be, one of the considerations for allowing it. And this particular location is, as Steve brought up, a fairly built-up area that we don't have a lot of residences, if any, along this stretch. And I think that's what I worry about most when we talk about fill in the floodplain is, residents and people who live there losing their homes. you know, a business is a little different. I know it's still a loss for the people that own the business, but I would take that into account. And I'm also just wondering if this requires zoning or planning board approval, because as far as what I've read about solar in Lowell, it seems to be required that it goes on a rooftop. I don't know whether that's just residential. I haven't read it really carefully, but I wonder if that is something that needs approval as well. So if we can get the plans to include a chart of the fill amount, the volume of fill foot by foot, and the floodplain elevation, then I think we at least have something to go back to once the construction is completed, so that we can see that more fill than what they estimated was needed isn't added and things like that. So we just need we need something on record, is my feeling. And then, you know, I've also would be amenable to probably approving something like this. This is actually de minimis in my mind, rather than some of the prior projects that have come before us saying that they won't do that much harm. So,
Yeah. Yeah, to add, Bradley, to what Lucia said, so this particular location comes under minority with disadvantaged people, and there is no direct access to public EV charging stations. So that was the main reason we focused on that location. So
thank you.
So just to be clear, the chart is basically pavement to 1 foot, 1 foot to 2 foot, and your cut, or your fill from your volume of your tubes, and just shown per foot, right? So we have examples of this chart just to make sure. As an aside, Fran, is there a way that we could request that any projects looking to do anything in the flood zone could be just shown one of these tables?
Yes, we can integrate that into our sort of application guidance, so that that's an expectation when there's a project in the floodplain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we've ended up
Yeah,
sending people on continuance a lot of times lately about that.
Yep.
So
Sure.
if that could be a standard, great.
yes.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think that we've said what we need to say here. The directive for a little bit of plan addendum, and with your permission, I would entertain a motion to request a continuance to the April 13th meeting. April 10th meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission.
okay.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I will come with the compensation plan. I will come with the floodplain elevation structural plan more in detail.
And grading,
Yeah.
site grading.
Yes, site compensation grading, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I just have to show you how much concrete is going, how much it will be compensated for.
I mean, anything underneath the existing grade doesn't matter. It's just what's above the existing grade.
2 feet on each side.
Sure.
Okay, 4 feet.
In a table.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I get like a reference for the table? Like how should I fill it? Yeah.
Friend or Dylan will have that reference
Okay.
for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and for the April, so this is the first time I'm doing this. So for the April thing, I have to again post the ad, Bradley, or like for the newspaper, or it's not required?
Sorry, say that one more time for me.
For the April 10th meeting, right? Do I have to again post the ad in the newspaper, or? I
Oh,
can just
no,
come?
no. So right, he doesn't need to do another ad for
No.
continuance.
No. The public notice is the commission stating the date that it's going to be continued to during the meeting. That is the public notice.
Okay.
You're
It's a new startup started from UMass Lowell, so we are new
Right
to
on.
this thing. But lessons learned moving forward, we'll make sure it's out of flood zone and then recommend the site to
Great
our
to hear.
customers.
I'm a Riverhawk as well. I'd love to hear more. I'll send you an email.
Yeah, I will reach out to you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue this to the 4/10 meeting, the April 10th meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
See you in our next meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Next up, we have a request for an extension of order of conditions. Boston Gas Company, DBA National Grid. The project location is on Cayenne Street, 01851, seeking an extension to their order of conditions DEP file number 2060666, issued for immediate response action, IRA activities conducted under the MCP in the Pawtucket Canal adjacent to Cayenne Street, seeking a 3-year extension. Good evening.
Good evening. Excuse me. I'm Mark Mahoney. I'm here with Anchor QEA. We're a consulting engineering firm. We're representing Boston Gas doing business as National Grid. I've been involved in this project since its inception back in 2010. In December of 2010, we submitted a notice of intent, and the project included the placement of a sediment cap over about an acre of sediment in the Pawtucket Canal, adjacent to the site, which is located off Cayenne Street. That cap is made out of a composite material that includes an organoclay in it. The organoclay is designed to absorb oil that's present in the sediment. And then one of the issues with the site is in the upland portion of the site, adjacent to the sediment, there is oil in the subsurface. That oily material migrates through the cut granite block wall that lines the canal. It's a rather high wall from the mud line up to the top of the wall. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 feet, depending on where you're located along the canal. We're located just downstream of the railroad bridge that crosses the canal. And that was a bit trickier. We were asked by Lowell Locks and Canals not to touch the wall. It has some historic significance. It's actually extremely well constructed. It's still in great shape. It looks brand new, despite the fact it probably dates back to the late 1700s or so. And so what we did in front of the wall is we placed a barrier. The barrier has rails that support a boom that goes up and down as the water level changes. And the boom contains the oil. Behind the containment boom, between the wall and the containment boom, is an absorbent boom that absorbs the oil that pulls on the surface. And draped below the containment boom is a pervious panel that is again made out of an oil absorbent material. Our teaming partner on this, IESI, includes the site licensed site professional who oversees this response action on behalf of Mass DEP and the Mass Contingency Plan and ensures compliance with the MCP. And his company regularly monitors the system, repairs it, and in particular checks the system out when the canal is drawn down. When the canal is drawn down, it's kind of a unique situation because you have about a 13 to 15 foot change in the hydraulic head, and at that time it results in a more voluminous discharge of oil. So in particular, they're up there and they take the measures that are necessary to make sure the system's in place. So we filed the order of conditions, and then there was a bit of a lapse in filing for the notice of intent. The order of conditions was issued in January of 2011. Then there was a bit of a lapse in filing for a request for extension. That we filed our first request for extension in 2017. We filed again in 2021, in January of 2021. And so we should have filed in January of 2024 this year. So again, we let this lapse by several weeks, couple of months. And so we're putting it to the commission, asking for another extension to the order of conditions while we continue to work on remediating the site. And it's really up to the commission whether they want to issue that extension or request another notice of intent, I think is the recourse if that extension is not acceptable.
I've seen and heard about significant progress happening over there as of late. It seems like it's moving faster. It might be some other projects in the area too.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I have no reason to do anything but accept an extension. Anybody have any concerns? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant an extension to the order of conditions of a period of 3 years.
Second?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks for coming in.
All right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right, one more item on our agenda, an
So
enforcement order.
Apologize, but I'm not sure why this is on the agenda. I think that this is someone that hasn't attended, and potentially staff sent another notice saying, hey, it's going to be on this agenda, and they're not here again.
Yeah, there's
So
nobody online for this
No
item.
one's online, correct.
Okay,
We do have, if I may, let me remind. So this enforcement order was for, let me look.
so we're talking about an enforcement order provided by the agents, the conservation agents back in
Yep.
September to Sai Dang of 258 Varnum Ave. Enforcement order due to debris dumping within the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah.
I believe that this was ratified previously. I don't know if we've ever talked to them.
Okay.
But hearing that there's a little confusion about it, I'd like to continue this to the next meeting, and we can get a little bit more clarity then and see if, due to non-response, we might entertain another strategy.
Different types of enforcement. Yeah. Because we are empowered under the local ordinance to issue monetary fines,
Understood.
so,
Has it been cleaned up?
good question. We can
Can we-
check before the next meeting.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I doubt it, but we will check.
I would be prepared to start talking about something like that then at
Yeah.
the next meeting. I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Any motions?
I'll make a motion to continue this to the April 10th meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Final item of business is the 3:13 meeting minutes. Any comments? Or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 3:13 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That brings us to the end of our agenda. Fran, do you have anything else for us?
I do not.
Okay. One last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.